In a defiant televised address, the Iranian leadership has officially declared the immediate closure of the Strait of Hormuz, effectively severing the world's primary oil artery. Simultaneously, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is deploying advanced anti-ship cruise missiles across the rugged coastline, aimed directly at vital international shipping lanes. Swarms of IRGC fast attack craft have been observed laying sea mines, creating a lethal barrier that threatens any vessel attempting to transit the strategic choke point. Panic is now rippling through global capitals as defense officials in Washington and Brussels convene emergency sessions to address this unprecedented maritime siege. Global energy markets are in a state of absolute chaos, with crude oil prices surging as tankers remain stranded outside the Iranian missile envelope. The specter of a regional conflagration looms large as Allied forces begin a massive mobilization to break the blockade before the global economy collapses entirely. As of March 27, 2026, the Strait of Hormuz, the world's most critical maritime choke point, is now effectively under a total Iranian naval blockade. The IRGC officially declared the waterway closed today, following a month of escalating kinetic strikes between Tehran and Washington. This morning, the IRGC Navy confirmed its forces intercepted and forcibly turned back 3 large container vessels that attempted to transit the Omani coastline. Tehran has issued a stark warning. Any unauthorized movement in these waters will now be met with what they term harsh and immediate measures. While President Trump has paused a planned energy plant destruction campaign for 10 days, the military reality on the ground remains exceptionally dire tonight. Over 150 commercial tankers are currently anchored outside the Gulf of Oman, unable to secure insurance or any safety guarantees for transit. Economically, this crisis has triggered a systemic collapse of the Gulf Cooperation Council's export model, leaving oil and LNG exports from Qatar effectively stranded. Brent crude has surged past $110 per barrel, with physical oil prices in Asia reaching record-breaking premiums across all major markets. The global energy market faces a supply shock exceeding 10 million barrels per day, forcing the world's industrial centers into a state of high alert. On February 28th, a massive U.S.-Israeli joint air campaign decapitated key Iranian military command structures, triggering a nationwide red alert across the Islamic Republic. By March 2nd, the IRGC officially declared the strait closed to hostile shipping. Consequently, maritime insurance providers revoked war risk coverage, causing a 70% transit drop. During mid-March, a shadow blockade took hold. Major energy firms, including Qatar Energy and Shell, declared force majeure as over 150 tankers remained stranded. On March 26, Israel confirmed the elimination of Rear Admiral Alireza Tangsiri, the IRGC Navy chief and primary architect of the blockade, in Bandar Abbas. Today, Iran responded by intercepting 3 merchant vessels, enforcing an absolute ban on all Western-linked shipping throughout the strategic waters of the Persian Gulf. President Trump has issued a final 10-day ultimatum, pausing planned energy plant destruction strikes until April 6th to allow for emergency mediation via Pakistan.
The military posture in the strait has shifted from posturing to active denial. The IRGC has deployed a sophisticated A2AD umbrella across the Musandam Peninsula.
Intelligence reports confirm the positioning of Noor and Gadir anti-ship cruise missiles. Hidden within rugged coastal limestone, these batteries remain nearly invisible to standard Western radar. Complicating the tactical environment is Iran's swarm and mine strategy. Hundreds of Zulfikar fast attack craft are now operating out of Keshem Island, deploying lethal underwater assets. These smart mines remain dormant on the seabed until triggered by specific acoustic signatures. They are specifically programmed to target Western tankers attempting to break the blockade. In response, the U.S. Navy has moved Carrier Strike Group 5, led by the USS Ronald Reagan, into the strategic waters of the North Arabian Sea. Iranian Kilo-class diesel-electric submarines in these shallow waters have forced the United States to rely heavily on unmanned surface vessels for dangerous, high-stakes minesweeping operations. Significant developments include the deployment of S-300 and Khordad-15 air defense systems. These batteries are currently on active track mode, targeting any incoming U.S. or Israeli jets. The military standoff is now a digital and kinetic hair-trigger situation. A single misidentification could immediately ignite a devastating, multi-front war across the entire Middle East. The international community remains paralyzed as the 10-day ultimatum ticks down toward April 6th. At the United Nations, an emergency resolution for a maritime ceasefire was vetoed. The European Union has issued its strongest warning yet. Brussels reports that energy reserves across the continent have dropped to critical levels, threatening the entire Eurozone's stability. In the east, China maintains a calculated neutrality. While Beijing calls for unrestricted commerce, satellite intelligence confirms Chinese-flagged tankers continue to transit under Iranian safe passage protocols. This dual-track shipping reality has drawn sharp criticism from Washington. Tehran is accused of weaponizing global energy supply lines to favor specific geopolitical partners during this blockade. The Gulf Cooperation Council is in a state of high alert. Saudi Arabia and the Emirates have moved export operations to Red Sea terminals, but pipeline capacities remain insufficient. In London and New York, the maritime insurance market has effectively frozen. Lloyd's of London has declared the entire Persian Gulf a prohibited navigation zone for Western-insured hulls. The diplomatic wildcard remains Pakistan. Acting as the sole intermediary, Islamabad is currently hosting high-level delegations in a desperate attempt to formalize a Hormuz peace corridor. The world now waits to see if a deal can be reached before the April 6 deadline expires, or if a global kinetic conflict will become inevitable. The strategic weight of the Strait of Hormuz has never been more evident. This blockade reveals a systemic fragility that extends far beyond the global gas pump tonight. Approximately 20% of the world's seaborne oil and liquefied natural gas is currently severed from the global market, causing an immediate and catastrophic energy supply shock. However, the impact on agriculture is equally devastating. The strait is the primary artery for nearly 50% of the world's urea and 30% of its ammonia. This nitrogen supply chain cannot be rerouted. If the blockade continues, the global planting season faces a total collapse, potentially triggering a humanitarian food crisis for billions. The actuarial architecture of modern trade has proven as potent as any naval battery. By designating the Gulf a prohibited navigation zone, Lloyd's of London neutralized Western vessels. A two-tiered global economy has emerged. While non-hostile nations utilize Iranian-vetted corridors to maintain industrial output, Western markets remain economically throttled and struggling to survive. Geopolitically, the strait has become Tehran's ultimate strategic lever. By holding global energy and fertilizer supply hostage, Iran is conducting a stress test of the entire international order. The 10-day ultimatum ending April 6 represents the final window for the world to decide if the freedom of navigation still exists as a functional global principle. As the clock ticks toward the April 6 deadline, the international community is currently weighing three distinct and dangerous paths for the next phase of this global crisis. This ominous outcome hinges on mediation by Islamabad. Tehran would agree to a freedom of navigation guarantee in exchange for a ceasefire. However, following the recent assassination of Admiral Tangsiri, hardliners within the IRGC may view any diplomatic concession as a direct betrayal of their fallen naval commander. Scenario 2. Operation Epic Fury Expansion. If April 6 passes without a breakthrough, the Trump administration has signaled it will move from a strategic threat to active execution.
This massive strike on Iran's oil terminals could trigger a suicide response, involving total mining of the waterway and devastating drone strikes against Saudi and Emirati infrastructure.
Scenario 3. The two-tiered status quo. Western-insured vessels remain locked out by risk, while a trickle of Asian shipping continues to transit under specialized Iranian naval escort. This leads to a permanent fracturing of the global energy market. The West relies on expensive Atlantic crude, while the East consolidates its alliance with a defiant Iran. The coming 10 days will determine our reality. As one diplomat noted, we are no longer debating oil prices, we are debating the survival of global trade itself. Stay tuned for further updates on the Hormuz crisis of 2026. This is your independent strategic report. Good night, and may the world find a path forward.